Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest is Lyron, Bentovim, the CEO of the Glimpse Group. The website is theglimpsegroup.com. We've been talking about the AR and VR applications that they're working on. So, Lyron, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you for coming. So tell me about the Glimpse Group. What's the premise of the company?
So the Glimpse Group is actually a very unique structure. We are a platform company, so we actually have 10 startups that are fully owned and are making part of the Glimpse Group, and obviously we're constantly adding additional companies. So there's two pieces to our story. One of it is the virtual reality and augmented reality, and the other one is the unique structure of trying to build innovation in a different way. So we can focus on either part of that.
Well, let's cover both. So tell me tell me about the innovation piece first, and then we'll go to the other piece.
So one of the things that are kind of unique for startups is they have certain problems that they're trying to solve. The first one, it's the premise for every startup, is finding a problem in the world that has not been solved, or at least not been solved effectively by anyone. The second challenge a startup has is, okay, how can you solve that problem? So those are unique to every startup. But one of the challenges we have in the real world is after you do that, you find a problem and you figure out how to solve it. You need to go raise money for that and build a company. And those two are two different challenges. And what we're trying to do is to separate them and allow the teams to focus on what they're good at, which is the innovation, finding that problem and solving it, and building their product and service around that, and create an environment that allows them to succeed as part of this ecosystem of like-minded entrepreneurs.
So you're good at the raising money part? Is that the part you help them with?
No. Well, that's part of what we do. We take that away from them because that's usually not their skill set, but we're creating an ecosystem for them. There's 10 companies. They all are owned by each other in a sense. And there's a lot of sharing and co-working around solving similar problems because all of the entrepreneurs understand the same technology and are aligned with each other.
Oh, so they're sharing ideas, they're talking, they're meeting together, and this collaboration you're thinking is what helps the innovation amongst the companies?
Yeah, so it's very lonely to start a company by yourself, even if you have a couple of co-founders. You're sitting there either in a WeWork or in your garage and trying to build something, and it's very siloed. So as the startup scene evolved, there's a lot of accelerators and incubators out there, but there's a few challenges with that model. One of the challenges of the accelerator incubator model is the companies are coming from different industries. So most of the time there's no common thread outside of the fact that they're all startups, and they all come in, they're there for 3-6 months, and then they move on. And all of the challenges that those startups have stay with them. What we do in our model is we're building this community that stays together, and we take care of all the things that are not core to what the startup does. So both the operational, the business development, the capital raising, the managing and building a company, all that is done by us, and they're focusing on really building their product and taking it to market.
Okay. So what have you found happens when companies come into your, co-working space and collaborate? How long does it take them to get into the flow of things, and do they mind sharing about their ideas, or what have you noticed?
So usually, when the companies come, it's a process that we work with them as they're coming in. It's a dual selling. So we're selling them on our unique model and how we do things, and they're selling us on what's unique about them and why we should bring them in to be part of Glimpse. When they come in, they're eager to be part of this, and usually they become part of the scene very, very quickly.
Okay, makes sense. So, but again, what do you notice happens? What's the ramp in terms of what's happening in their minds in the first, few weeks to a month? Like, what do you notice happens when a company, comes there their first day and then settles in over the weeks?
They're usually kind of basically coming in and getting to know everybody, and part of that is the process even before they come, because one of the selling factors is you want to be part of this. And when people come to our kind of office and see kind of all the teams working together, they want to be a part of that. As they come in, it's about kind of getting to know the different skill sets of the people around them and who they can rely on for help in each area, and also kind of establishing themselves, what do they bring to the table and how they can help other teams in their environment. Again, it's important to stress that each team has their own view, and they're all product, and they're set up as their own entity, but they're all kind of part of the Glimpse family, and they're kind of helping each other kind of achieve success.
Well, what kind of feedback do you get from them as they're in various parts of the process, positive or negative, or, what have you learned about doing this that surprised you that you didn't think would happen but did?
So one of the things, as we built Glimpse, kind of the vision was to help kind of with those challenges that the teams are not core on. We didn't really expect the strength of how people will help each other. And kind of when you see in the evening kind of 3 or 4 people from 3 different teams sitting together and solving one team's problem, even though they're not it's not part of their job description, it's very, very powerful. And what we've learned is that you build a community and people want to be part of it. People are willing to give a lot into the community as part of that.
That's great. Okay. So what do you look for when you're willing, when you're considering whether to accept a company or not? What kind of attributes or characteristics do they have to have? And, what are warning signals that they may not be a fit?
So I'll start with the positives. So the most important thing for us are kind of to have people that are creative, out-of-the-box thinkers, because starting a startup in a very early stage industry like augmented reality and virtual reality industry is, you need to be able to be flexible in terms of how you're tackling the challenges that come at you. So we're looking for very, very creative people that are coming in. The second thing we're really looking for are people that are technically solid in what they're doing. Because again, we're a technology company, and you need people that actually know how to solve their problems. Once you have that, the biggest difference between what we're looking for and what most others kind of startups kind of have is people that want to be part of a team. So there's individuals that are very good, and some of them will succeed in building a company, but we cannot afford, given what we're doing, to have a kind of me-first attitude. So we want people that believe in themselves, that want to succeed, that are willing to kind of put the extra effort, but they value kind of being part of a team. It's not just about them.
I would think that, VR, AR startups, the field is like super tech heavy. How do you help them navigate which patents they have to be aware of and need to license, or there may even be showstoppers that won't let them do their application?
Yeah, so what kind of we consider IP to be critical because of the early stage of the industry. And we have partnered with one of the largest law firms in kind of IP law, kind of certainly here in New York. And not only when they came in to see if we want to work together, they actually saw what we're working on and decided to invest in us. So our relationship is stronger than just kind of lawyers and company. And we work with them in partnership to kind of guide our team. So kind of the head IP lawyer from the law firm will come in and spend time with the teams, hearing what they're working on and giving them kind of advice, as well as kind of understanding where we can have IP that we can capture as our own. So we see this as a very important piece of the equation.
Well, in addition, so there's things that you'll do for these companies, to take the load off of them, and then there's things that really only they can do. But even within the realm of the things that only they can do, where do they tend to need help or advice? For people listening that are considering joining a group like yours or doing a startup, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so that's a very, very, very good question. So if you look at technology, obviously most of the teams here, the technology is in their heart. That's core. But many of the technologists are relatively young, and they will rely on our CTO and VP of engineering, who has a lot more experience, to sit with each team, not solve the technology problem for them, but guide them and give them structure of how to solve their problems and how to kind of build products in a way that will allow them to be more effective. Another area that they are kind of taking responsibility for is go-to-market, but we will work with them on business development, sales, marketing, and kind of participate with them as needed to help them kind of achieve sales. We're focusing our companies on B2B. So we're not just making games and kind of putting them out there, but actually trying to solve business problems in a variety of industries. And we will go with them and help them kind of learn how to sell into kind of big companies, which is a skill most people need.
Yeah, what do you think? What's the end goal of a lot of startups? Do they even have one? And what should be the end goal? Or does that really matter on what they want to do? Should they end up trying to sell to somebody or sell to customers?
It depends, kind of. So kind of under Glimpse, kind of we actually are fully aligned with the team in terms of where the right end game is. Some of the companies would stay part of Glimpse forever. Some of them, as they grow, would make sense for them to go out and be independent on their own, either as a kind of private company or as a public company. And some would make sense to sell them to a strategic kind of in the industry. So we have all the options open, and many times as they start, they don't know where they want to go. They know what they're passionate about, what they want to build, and they move forward and they build it, and then life takes its own turn. So we keep all the options open for them.
Any statistics you're aware of? What percentage of startups make it if they're on their own versus with a co-op group like yours, an incubator? What percentage survive X number of years or go on to flourish? Any industry stats you're aware of?
Well, so our model is unique. To the best of my knowledge, there's no one that does what we're doing. If you look at startups as a whole, I would say from what I've heard, and this is anecdotal evidence and numbers, I don't have a number in front of me, probably 90% of them don't make it past the first year. From our own perspective, we've had 10 that 8 of them have been here for more than a year and a half. So, and we have had none that failed. We've had a couple that had a change of strategy, but they continue to move forward. So I think our models kind of show some effectiveness, but it hasn't been studied yet.
Well, in your experience, why do a lot of startups fail? Why do so many fail in the first year? It's pretty quick.
So the number one reason startups fail is because they can't get funding. I would say most of the failures of startups is not because they can't solve the problem they're trying to solve, or that the problem doesn't exist, because most of them don't even get to really give a chance to solve that. Most of them fail because they either can't raise any money, or they raise their money and then they go through it, burn it, and don't deliver on that result. Both of these are solved under Glimpse. Obviously, with us funding their development, we keep our hands on their pulse. We understand what's going on, and they will not fail for lack of funding. And since we're managing all the back end operations, they're a very effective run. And this is I can tell you the stat that our companies probably get for the same dollar about 3 times as much value as companies on the outside, because they eliminate all of the overhead and outside services that many startups rely on to start their business. If you look at legal services, HR, accounting, marketing advisors, and all sort of other places where the money goes, that's not straight development. We try and run Glimpse as a very lean company, and very structured, and allowing the companies to really maximize their chance of success.
If I'm solving a real problem and my product, looks good, looks viable and all that, but I have no clue how to raise money, is it pretty for sure that, someone that does know how to raise money, like Glimpse Group or maybe someone else, if I have someone on board that knows how to raise money, they're good at it, is there any shortage of money out there, so long as my team is good and my idea is good?
There's no shortage of money, but most of the money likes to follow trends. Augmented reality and virtual reality is still in the show me stage of technology evolution, and therefore it's very hard to raise money as a standalone AR VR companies, especially the smaller early stage startups. So having a good idea is a good start, And knowing someone that knows how to raise money is also helpful. But still, for a standalone company, even with a great idea and someone that knows how to raise money, it's not easy. Raising money as a whole kind of is not an easy task unless you're in a very, very hot sector where the money is chasing any idea that looks like it.
Okay. So, all right. How is Glimpse different from an incubator? I'm not even sure exactly because I haven't been in one. What does a traditional incubator do? And then what do you guys do that's different from that?
Well, we take some of the best features of an incubator, but the model is totally different. In an incubator, you come in for a short period, 3 to 6 months. You get some advice and some support, and usually kind of some real estate to be in. But it's your company. They take a very small piece of equity as a reward for their efforts. And after the end of the process, they basically say, thank you, give you a nice diploma, and tell you to come in for the next alumni event in 3 months. In Glimpse, since we own those companies, we actually acquire all the startups that come into Glimpse. We own 100% of them. We create an incentive structure for the entrepreneurs, but we manage them as they are our business. We let the entrepreneurs, as I said, manage their individual plan to kind of execute the product and take it to market. But all the financial responsibility stays with Glimpse. It never goes away until the company is mature enough to be sold or kind of stand on its own 2 feet. So it's a totally different model. The benefits of an incubator is having that kind of shared experience and being together with a bunch of startups. We have that at Glimpse, but they're actually kind of aligned with each other versus kind of in a regular scenario. You have a lot of startups from different industries, and all of them obviously don't have any equity interest in each other. So they're kind of helping each other as friends, but they can't really add value in a big way.
What does the equity interest look like? I mean, you get reservations. I'm sure you set the expectations up front, but what does it look like if I join and there's 9 other companies and I'm the 10th? How much equity am I giving them, and how much am I getting from them?
Well, you're not giving them or getting them. So the model is very, very simple, but it takes kind of usually a couple of sessions before entrepreneurs really get it. So let's start with kind of what happens on the outside. So kind of if a group of entrepreneurs or one entrepreneur starts a company, over time, the average company upon exit in the US, the entrepreneurs get 7% of the economic interest when there's an exit. So if you look at all the companies in the last 10, 15 years, I don't know what the survey was, and they measure the economic interest that entrepreneurs end up with after all the dilution that comes from multiple rounds of financing and options to employees and down rounds and all the things that kind of come into play, the average team the founding team ends up with 7%. We tell our entrepreneurs that if there's an exit from their business, they will receive 10% undiluted. So they're going to have their cake, in a sense, actually have a slightly bigger than average piece of their own business. On top of that, since we're acquiring them, we're giving them equity in the parent company that owns all 10 of these based on the value they've created to date. So if they already have a prototype and a product, then they'll obviously get a bigger piece than if it's just a business plan and nothing else. And we will negotiate that value with each team. It doesn't matter if they're the 7th team or the 17th team. And when they come in, now their equity piece gives them ownership of all the companies that are part of Glimpse today, but also every company that will continue to come, they will own as Glimpse shareholders a piece of that. Now, when there's an exit, what happens is, as I said, the entrepreneurs team will get the 10% undiluted. And then the 90% that stays at Glimpse will actually distribute it to all of our shareholders, which many of them are the entrepreneurs of all the other teams, which creates a scenario where kind of if one team exits, everybody else gets kind of some reward. Now, obviously not as big as the team that actually achieved the exit, but something that will be very significant to them, regardless of how successful their individual venture was.
So the stats say that when a founder sells, they only get about 7% of their company, or 7% is all they get?
The average. Well, the 7% is actually the average kind of in the U.S. So you found a company today, you start raising money. The average company raises 6 or 7 rounds of financing before they achieve an exit. And the founders end up with kind of 7% on average. I know stories of founders that ended up with less than 1% of their company, even though they founded it and run it all the way to the exit. Dilution is very, very impactful, especially as you can continue to kind of raise money. our founders will end up with 10%, and that's guaranteed because that's an undiluted number. So they actually end up with more equity in their own company than if they would raise money in the traditional route.
So what does that tell you about how much money you need to raise, or to even consider, starting a business, how much money it needs to make for it to be worthwhile to a founder? Do you do that calculation with them at the outset?
No, you can't. You don't know where it's going. Founders kind of have a passion to build something, and they raise money to allow them to achieve success. The problem is many of them have never run a business, and therefore they're not running their business in an effective manner, and that hurts their ability to kind of be successful. But obviously, different businesses have different capital requirements. Depends on your model, how early you can get to revenue, and how early you can get to profitability, and kind of what happens in the markets that you're attacking in the next 2, 5, 7, 10 years. So you can't foresee that kind of for any given startup.
I just wondered if founders were aware of that, maybe it would kill their desire and their passion to do the startup, or maybe it's better. Maybe it gives them a realistic exit. I don't know. Do you see that founders anticipate that they'll have a super high amount of money when they exit? Are they disappointed, or they don't even think about that? What's your experience?
Well, you have to show them that they're actually going to have, they basically have kind of multiple shots on goal versus one shot when they have their own company. But even for their own company, they're actually going to end up with more of the economic interests than the average founders will get. And I think we can show them that kind of being part of what we're doing actually increases their likelihood to achieve success, which is a big factor. So when they look at the economics of things, once they understand the full impact of our model, and they see kind of what it means to be part of Glimpse, and they want to be part of it, the decision is usually pretty easy once they get all that data.
Okay, all right, makes sense. So what else is Glimpse doing? I mean, this is enough, obviously. The program sounds really good. It sounds like it makes a lot of sense, and it'll help companies succeed more often. Are there other projects that you're working on, or is this, the whole scope of it? Again, this is plenty, but I wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, we're running ourselves as a virtual reality and augmented reality company. We're just running as a platform company with 10 individual companies under us. So each one of our companies is providing either software or services in their space. So we have companies that work for education, healthcare, kind of financial services, restaurants, sports, and a variety of other industries. So as a company that I'm running, we're providing multiple solutions to multiple businesses. It's kind of like a big holding company, but of startups.
Do you, how much overlap would you say you have between the 10 companies that you work with? And do you deliberately try to engineer that in so that everyone benefits and there's like a synergy?
Well, so we deliberately engineer it that none of our companies compete with each other, because that will kind of prevent them for kind of helping each other out and will cause a lot of issues internally. But there's a lot of synergies between our companies. We've had multiple situations where we talked to a potential customer, and when we heard what the solution that the customer was looking for, we used pieces of technology or parts of kind of what to solve that solution for multiple companies. We've had multiple ones where we had 2, 3, and even 4 companies get together to solve a customer's problem.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. Okay. So what's the best way for interested firms to get in contact and to apply to be part of Glimpse Group?
The best way is to go to our website and kind of connect with us. There's a kind of a contact us tab there, or they can just email me at lyron@theglimpsegroup.com, and I will respond to their email.
And Lyron is Lyron, right?
Correct.
All right, and then last question. Are there other, we can call them incubators, whatever you want to call them, but are there other groups out there in other industries that are doing something similar to what you're doing? Or is it just you guys so far as you can see?
I think that's kind of, our model is unique. I think you can replicate this model in other industries. And one of the metrics of success for us as a whole is if we will see copycats trying to do what we're doing in other industries. I think that will be pretty cool.
Yeah, very good. All right, Lyron. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. And it's very interesting what you guys do. I'm glad I talked to you about it.
Thank you, and I enjoyed our conversation.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.